They said Titan was just a rock, a distant moon locked in Saturn's shadow. But to me, it was the last cradle of humanity's voice, the final echo of everything we once were. My name is Amara Vale, civilian exospecialist and memory keeper of Earth's diaspora, and I carry with me the final archive of our people, not just in data, but in sorrow. When the soul flare burned through our atmosphere, Earth wasn't obliterated in one glorious moment. No, it died slowly, crying plasma tears as cities melted, oceans boiled, and children inhaled ash where air once was. Only a few thousand escaped, scattered among the moons of Jupiter and Saturn like cosmic orphans with no flag, no songs left to sing. Titan was the farthest, coldest, and cruelest option, but it was also the quietest. There were no wars here, no cries of the dying, just wind, methane fog, and memories. On Titan, I worked beneath the methane sky with frost-bitten engineers, trying to build a future out of crushed alloy and dying dreams. We had oxygen gardens and hope recycling units, but the warmth was leaving us. Not just the physical kind, but the human kind. We stopped celebrating birthdays, then stopped maiming babies, and eventually stopped speaking during meals, as if silence hurt less than hope. My husband, Cale, was the last musician on Titan. He played an old stringed violin he reforged from carbon polymer scrap, and his music sounded like the way Earth smelled after rain. He used to say that strings remember what we forget. He wrote lullabies no child would hear, hymns for cities no longer standing. Sometimes I'd sit outside the comm tower, just listening. But the day our daughter Eleni's lungs failed, crushed by an unexpected ammonia leak, he stopped playing. He buried the violin beneath the frozen soil and went out without a suit. I found him kneeling in the methane snow, his eyes open, his hands frost-welded to a photo of us, taken when Earth still had green. After that, I stopped logging personal data, though I was tasked with maintaining the final emotional archive, a digital vault of every poem, love letter, confession, and lullaby ever spoken on Earth. I read them sometimes, until my throat locked and tears froze mid-cheek. Some days I read the Declaration of Independence, other days a 5-year-old's note to a puppy. They were all the same in the end, little fireflies of meaning flickering in the black. The sickness came next, a slow neurological corrosion from radiation pockets in Titan's crust. We called it the fade. I watched people I loved forget their own names, speak to ghosts, laugh while bleeding from the gums. I lost friends, colleagues, even the commander, one by one, until only 6 of us remained. We were too proud to call for rescue. There was no one left to hear it anyway. Mars had gone silent 2 years before. Europa was rumored to have been lost to biological collapse. Humanity wasn't just dying, it was vanishing, like ink sinking into oil. I remember the day the comms array picked up something, a weak, flickering signal from the Kuiper outpost. It said, "We remember Earth. We remember you." I wanted to scream, to run, to live again. But by then, I was in stage 3 fade. My hands trembled too violently to input the nav data, and the others were already too far gone. In the end, I spent my final days recording one last entry for the emotional archive, reading aloud every memory worth preserving, the warmth of a parent's embrace, the chill of beach sand at night, the sound of laughter echoing off a canyon wall. I sealed it in a titanium pod and launched it toward the Kuiper belt, hoping someone, someday, might hear us again. I lived in the hydroponic dome after that, not because it was safer, but because the smell of mint and thyme reminded me of my grandmother's garden. I slept in the oxygen conduit chamber, listening to the last drips of the air recyclers, pretending they were rain. I wore Cale's old suit, even though it didn't fit, because the sleeves still carried the ghost of his cologne. Then one day I woke to an alert. It was TARS-7, our last functioning perimeter drone. It had detected movement, organic, bipedal. I thought I was hallucinating. I staggered to the viewport and saw it, a figure, covered in frost, dragging a pod behind them. I opened the doors manually. Inside the pod was a child, human, alive. His name was Rem, a refugee from a failed Europa ship that crash-landed on the dark side of Titan a month prior. His parents were gone. He had been surviving on nutrient gel packs and filtered thermal water. He didn't speak, not at first, but he drew pictures of stars, of cities, of music. I cared for him as best I could. I taught him what Earth was, not just as a planet, but as a poem. I played him recordings of Cale's music, and when I wept, he held my hand. We weren't a colony anymore. We were a family, a mother and son forged not by blood, but by memory. Rem learned fast. He fixed a solar panel array that had been offline for years. He taught TARS-7 how to hum a tune. He restored parts of the archive I thought were lost. And then one day he said, "I want to go to Kuiper. I want them to hear us." So we built the ship, piece by piece, from scavenged scrap and dying dreams. We worked through the storms, through the fade, through hunger. I knew I wouldn't live long enough to see him launch, but I didn't care. I just wanted to know humanity had one more chance. I died before the ignition sequence, peacefully, in the hydroponic dome, next to Cale's violin. I left Ram a message. Fly, sing, remember. He did. They say a ship left Titan that year. A miracle. A boy with memories too large for one heart. Somewhere in the Kuiper Belt, they say humanity sings again. And Titan weeps no more.